The last topic for this week is wraparound services, which is honestly another area that I don't have a ton of familiarity with. This presentation will summarize information from your reading in Brown and Stoffel chapter 44 this week about this particularly unique practice setting. Wraparound services are a philosophy of care rather than a specific service or program. It is most often used for children and families affected by mental illness, specifically individuals with severe emotional and behavioral disturbances. However, it is now also being used with a wider variety of population, such as adults with developmental disabilities or adults with chronic conditions like Parkinson's disease. Wraparound services can be thought of as a planning process that brings people together from all different parts of the whole family's life, and rather than forcing an individual to fit into an existing program structure, it believes that services and support should be flexibly arranged to meet the unique needs of the individual and their family. In other words, wraparound services asks, what does the family need, rather than what does the system have available for the family? Wraparound services are based on four basic assumptions. The first is that destructive behaviors are usually caused by an individual's unmet needs, and the biggest unmet need for people with destructive behaviors is usually loneliness. The third assumption is that receiving services does not necessarily mean that the individual's needs are being met, and the last assumption is that it's harder to institutionalize new ideas than to institutionalize people. In addition to the four basic assumptions of wraparound services, there are also 10 core principles covered in the reading. Wraparound services are driven by the family's voice and choice and are very team-based. They focus on natural supports and encourage collaboration. Wraparound services are both community-based and culturally competent. They are highly individualized services that use a strengths-based approach. Persistence is emphasized with wraparound services, and lastly, they are very outcome-based. There are several possible funding sources for wraparound services, the most prominent and primary being grants provided through the Center for Mental Health Services. Funding may also come from state and local sources, as well as Medicaid waivers, the juvenile justice system, child welfare programs, the education system, and private donations. Your reading for the week outlines four main phases of wraparound services. Phase 1 is the engagement and team preparation phase. In this initial phase, building trust and a sense of ownership with team members is central. The family or client is encouraged to tell their story, at which point other team members can help to identify strengths, needs, and experiences of the individual and their family. The goal of this initial informal contact is to start building a trusting relationship, as well as establish an understanding of the process of wraparound services and what the family can expect. Also, information is gathered about potential team members and how different team members can help the client meet their needs. The second phase in wraparound services is initial plan development. During phase 2, the care coordinator moves from engagement and assessing strengths and needs with the family and other potential team members to guiding the team through the initial wraparound meetings. This shift to team meetings needs to occur as quickly as possible, typically within 2 weeks from the initial phase 1 conversations. Baseline data reflecting the used family and provider perceptions of the strength and needs are shared and used to guide team consensus on and develop a collaborative mission statement for the client and their family. During phase 2, facilitators share the strengths and needs data with the team. Needs are prioritized and action planning begins as the facilitator guides team members to brainstorm strategies to increase strengths and meet the client and family needs. As strategies are developed, tasks and roles for all team members are clarified, and a safety plan may be developed if team members feel this is an imminent need for the particular client. During phase 3, which is implementation, database progress monitoring is used to review initial plans and revise interventions or strategies in response to ongoing efforts. The care coordinator ensures a regular meeting schedule for the team and continuous data collection and review of results so that data can inform the team when things are working or when they're not working, thus sustaining objectivity among all the team members. The final phase of the wraparound process marks the formal point of transition, when frequent or regular wraparound meetings are no longer needed. During this phase, accomplishments for the client and their family are reviewed and celebrated, and a transition plan is developed. The family may elect at this stage to share their experience with other families who are currently participating in wraparound services. So you may be asking yourself, what is the role of occupational therapy within wraparound services? I think this is a practice setting that we don't hear a lot about, and so it's definitely an area where you may not be certain where OT fits in. The care coordinator is a critical member of the wraparound team. As I mentioned, they're involved in every phase of the wraparound process. Care coordinators must be able to assess needs across the individual's life domains and connect individuals and their families to environmental supports that will help them to engage in meaningful daily occupations. Does that sound familiar? Certainly, OT's training and expertise make them a well-suited professional to fill the role of care coordinator within the wraparound team. In addition, OTs may play a role in the wraparound team by providing individual or group-based therapy that focuses on things like coping skills, developing impulse control, emotional regulation, or anger management. Lastly, OTs may take on a more administrative role in these types of programs. Principles of wraparound services, such as using a holistic, restorative approach to care, is certainly complementary to the philosophy of occupational therapy, suggesting that more OTs could be playing a beneficial role in programs offering wraparound services. In wrapping up, I just wanted to share that because I wasn't very familiar with wraparound services prior to teaching this class, as I read and prepared for this presentation, I became curious about what local organizations or programs may be using this philosophy of care that I was unaware of. I did a quick Google search of wraparound services in Utah, and that yielded several results, many of which were programs that I was actually familiar with, but I didn't know that they used this particular model of care of wraparound services. I wanted to just end this presentation by providing you with a list of local agencies that are using this wraparound model in case you're interested in exploring any of these further. Now, to the best of my knowledge and just like reviewing the websites and who's involved in the team for these particular agencies, I didn't actually see any OTs involved, which definitely has me thinking about, how can OT be more prominent and advocate for the value and utility of our services within this kind of approach. But some local agencies include CTA Supports, Allies with Families, the National Alliance on Mental Health, and Children's Service Society of Utah. So if you're interested in learning more about what each of those agencies have to offer and kind of thinking about how OT could play a role, I would definitely encourage you to check out those websites and see kind of what they're offering. Thanks for listening to this brief presentation on wraparound services. Hopefully it helped to kind of summarize and clarify information from your reading this week. Be sure to post any lingering questions you may have in the optional discussion for this week. Thanks.